Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dabo Swinney, the Clemson Tigers really starting to get hot in the month of September. Want to take a look back at the month, talk about some players that have been risers for this Clemson program, talk about some players that we're going to label them fallers, but guys that I'm not necessarily selling my stock on, just want to see a little bit more of them heading into the month of October. If you're a Clemson fan, like I think a lot of the national media wrote Clemson off after just a disappointing, frustrating loss against Georgia week one. You look at this offense and say everything is ahead of this Clemson team if this offense continue to build on what we're seeing over the last couple of weeks. Fired up to get into it. Before we're doing, as always, the Clemson fans, a lot of different names that we could talk about. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. And that's the best part about doing it. Y'all have showed a ton of support to the boys. Y'all know I love talking this program. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, this is going to be riser centered. You look at Clemson the last couple of weeks, this has been a Clemson team that is firing on all cylinders. Now, did this Clemson offense against Stanford Saturday night go out and execute the best of their ability? No, probably not. But again, I think that speaks to this Clemson offense and where it's at. Like, hey, we didn't play our best football. We didn't play anywhere near our best football on Saturday night. We're still able to score 40 points. And, I think it starts with how explosive this Clemson offense is. And I want to shout out Cade Klubnik first, our first riser. A lot of hate toward, not necessarily hate, but a lot of doubters with Cade Klubnik after that 2023 season. And quite frankly, after what we saw in the first game of 2024, a lot of people calling him a bust. And we kind of said, like, this kid checks a lot of boxes. He had to deal with a lot of moving parts as a young quarterback in 2023. I think one, you're seeing Cade Klubnik take leadership of this offense that I never really felt like we saw or felt in 2023. I'm kind of getting that feeling in 2024, but I think more importantly, like him and Garrett Riley are on the same page, and Cade Klubnik is playing a lot more confident as a quarterback. Now, getting into what we've seen from Cade Klubnik, I mean, 984 yards, 66% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, 10 big time throws in the first 4 games of the 2024 season. That's top 20 in the country. Like, Cade Klubnik is making some big time throws down the field. And I think the number that I love the most, the 66% completion percentage with an average depth of target of 10.8 yards down the field. I mean, we've talked about this extensively, looking for this Clemson offense to be a little bit more aggressive, pushing the ball down the field. Look, we know Cade has the arm talent to do it. I think partially Cade didn't play great in 2023, but I think a bigger storyline was the inconsistency from the pass catchers in 2023. Now with the emergence of some guys that we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes, this Clemson offense seems much more multidimensional. It can really stress defenses attacking that deeper third. He's 45% completion percentage on footballs, 20 plus yards down the field. That's an exceptional number. And I think on top of all that, you're seeing him lean into his athleticism in a little bit more of an efficient way. I felt like in 2023, Cade knew he was a good athlete, but didn't necessarily know when and how to use his legs. You're seeing him much more comfortable. Hey, I'm going to sit in the pocket. I'm going to go through some of my progressions. If it's not there and the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to go make defenses pay in terms of what I can do as an athlete. I think you're seeing all dimensions of Cade's game coming together for this Clemson offense. And yeah, he didn't have a very good game against Stanford. I thought he forced a few throws that we didn't really see him do the previous couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, this offense was able to score 40 points. I think that speaks to where this offense is in terms of being explosive, even if you're not necessarily that efficient. Next guy on the list, we got to talk about him, Brian Wesco. So there's 2 things I want to talk about with Brian Wesco. One, he's been everything that we needed to see Clemson have in 2024. And I think most notably what he can do working vertically down the field. The kid only had 7 catches on the year, 238 yards. Brian Wesco is averaging 34 yards per catch. Absolute ludicrous number. And yeah, he's hitting explosive plays that are changing games for Clemson. Yeah, we love that. I think more importantly, like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Cade Klubnik is playing his best football with the insertion of Brian Wesco into this lineup. Like, his ability to attack that deeper third, have opposing defenses and safeties respect what Brian Wesco can do, all of a sudden there's a lot more space for guys like Antonio Williams and guys like Jake Bringenstool underneath. We didn't see that for Clemson last year. It felt so congested in the short underneath concepts last year because they didn't have a Brian Wesco that could really make defenses respect what Clemson could do down the field. Now you have it. So not only is he making plays for Clemson, but just his mere presence on the football field is allowing Cade to have a lot of success. But I think more importantly, some other pass catchers in this offense. Brian Wesco, arguably, in my opinion, the most important player to this offense up to this point. Next guy I want to shout out, and a guy that, quite frankly, we kind of knew was going to be good. I think a lot of Clemson fans did. We talked about him in the offseason. I don't think he got a ton of national media recognition. Aven Terrell is just a straight dude. You talk about a true lockdown cornerback one. You talk about a first-team All-ACC caliber guy. Those were the expectations that we had for Aven Terrell. He's met them and some. You take a look at the numbers, 20 targets, only giving up 8 catches, 40% completion percentage, 4 pass breakups, 1 interception. It's largely becoming a, hey, we ain't going to throw to Aven Terrell because it's just not worth it. Let's go try to attack this Clemson defense in a little bit of different ways, tackling really well as well. Having a cornerback, like that true cornerback one, that lockdown cornerback, it's hard to find. You can probably only count on 2 hands the amount of lockdown cornerbacks that we see in the country. Aven Terrell's working, if not already there, in terms of being that true cornerback one. 2 more guys on defense I want to give quick shout outs to. One, RJ Mickens. We kind of said, like, is he going to be the best player on this Clemson defense? No, probably not. Is he going to arguably one of the most important players on this Clemson defense? Yeah, probably. Because the Clemson safety room was a big question for at least myself heading into 2024. And one thing that I really thought was important is that RJ Mickens plays good football, because you look at the rest of the safety room, it's a lot of guys that just, haven't played a lot of football. There's a lot of talented dudes, especially the true freshmen in that room. But if you're Dabo or you're a Clemson fan, like, you didn't want to have to rely on a bunch of true freshmen to play significant reps. RJ Mickens has been awesome. He's second on the team in tackles. I think mostly what he's doing in the run game. Like, this is a guy that is firing downhill. He's so present in the run game, doesn't miss a lot of tackles. Thought he struggled week 1 against Georgia, along with most of this Clemson team since that week. I think RJ Mickens has been playing some really good football. And again, is he the best defender on this Clemson team? Is he even in the top 5? No, probably not. But he's playing one of the most important roles for this Clemson defense. It was a massive question mark, that safety play. RJ Mickens has been awesome, specifically coming downhill and stopping the run. Last guy we got to buy some stock in. It's got to be him, right? Sammy Brown, the All-American boy. Many of the Clemson fans who've been rocking with me for the last year or two, the Sammy Brown's my guy. Like, loved everything about this kid coming out of high school, multi-sport athlete, just a beauty with a mullet, you might say. What I think's big about Sammy Brown is that he's starting to put it together between the years. You look at the linebacker position, it's not like the wide receiver position. Like, if you're just athletically gifted enough, you could probably find your way on the football field as a true freshman wide receiver. You're seeing it all over the country, not with just Brian Wesco, but Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams at Alabama. At the linebacker spot, it's a lot harder because there's other factors at play in terms of getting on the football field, right? Sammy Brown is physically gifted enough to play as a true freshman, and we're seeing that on the football field. But you're starting to see him put it together between the years. And Dabo Swinney said this in press conferences, obviously getting asked a lot about Sammy Brown. Hey, how's Sammy Brown doing? Dabo says he's starting to play faster between the years. You know what I mean? When you're playing that linebacker spot, there's a lot of different responsibilities, not only fitting the run, but knowing the checks, knowing the coverages, knowing where to drop back into your zones, having disciplined eyes, all sorts of things that you have to do that go beyond just being a physically dominant football player. You got to check at the linebacker spot. I thought specifically against Stanford, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks. You're starting to see Sammy Brown kind of put it together. And as this kid continues to put it together, I think we all know, like, he stays healthy, puts it together, he's going to be a All-ACC, All-American caliber guy over the next couple of years, but potentially even help Clemson out significantly towards the back half of 2024. Like, this is a kid that when he starts to, I hate to say put it together one more time, but I will say that as he starts to get right, like, he's going to be a hard guy to keep off the football field. I'm going to label him a faller, and I don't even know if I feel great about it. AJ Hoffler, and I'd probably throw in Jaheim Lawson into this conversation as well. We kind of noted that, and with the absence of Peter Woods, like AJ Hoffler, Jaheim Lawson, they've had to step up a little bit. We were a little bit concerned about the depth in the edge rusher department. I think Jaheim Lawson and AJ Hoffler are more capable than what we've seen throughout the first 4 weeks. And I think we all know it. We saw the flashes in the spring game. They're going to be relied on, and they're not necessarily starters for this Clemson defense. But when you're taking Peter Woods or TJ Parker off the field, can you not only have solid depth come in, but can you have some difference makers come in that defensive line rotation? You go back and look at the elite Clemson defenses. I think it started with the rotation they had on the defensive line. Like, hey, your ones are coming out for a couple plays. The twos are just as dominant. I think that there's a little bit more of a gap than I think maybe some Clemson fans would like between guys like TJ Parker and Peter Woods with AJ Hoffler and Jaheim Lawson. So again, I'm going to label AJ Hoffler and Jaheim Lawson as fallers. I don't necessarily feel great about it. And two young cats, they haven't played a ton of football coming into 2024. I'm pretty confident that they'll start becoming difference makers. One other guy that I'd maybe throw on the list, I'll say it, Jake Bringenstool, like just a couple drops. Like the standard's high for that kid. I think he's one of the best tight ends in all of the country. And partly what made Jake so good is being that big body over the middle of the field that could catch in traffic. You've seen him do a lot of good things, and quite frankly, he's played pretty dang good. But when you get into some of these games that matter, you want to see Jake coming up with some of those third down catches that maybe he hasn't made to start the 2024 season. And that's being nitpicky. Like, there's not a lot to dislike about what we've seen from this Clemson team since that Georgia game, week 1. They're catching fire. And I think a lot of people wrote them off after that Georgia game. You got to start writing Clemson back in. They're a legitimate contender in the ACC. I think it's between them and Miami. I think it's pretty clear that those are probably the best two teams that we see in the country. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. One more riser, Garrett Riley, offensive coordinator. I had that in my notes, forgot to put it in there. He's been great. I think this Clemson offense just feels so different, and you can tell Garrett Riley's feeling a little bit more comfortable with Cade Klubnik and how he's calling this offense. Now we'll wrap it up. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.